Yeah.
All right, we are live and good to go.
Okay, I now call to order the meeting of the City of College Place Utility and Transportation Advisory Commission on Thursday, November 14, 2024. We are beginning at 3:34 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Kress,
I'm here.
Commissioner Williams,
Present.
Commissioner Tessman,
Here.
Commissioner Larson. Commissioner Larson is absent and Commissioner Riggle has asked to be excused. We do have a quorum.
Okay. Did anyone submit a public comment in advance, Madam Clerk?
No, they did not.
Okay, if anyone in actual or virtual attendance would like to speak, please raise your hand now. It's *9 on the phone. If you're using your hand, the phone to, you can raise your hand by connection. Do we have public comment? We'll move then to our consent agenda. And that consists of the approval of the agenda for November 13, 2024, and the approval of minutes from August 8, 2024. And our rules provide for a consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda for approving the agenda for November 13th and the minutes for August 8th.
Second, Commissioner Williams.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. We have some presentations today. First on the agenda, item 3.01, on-call city engineer report by Mr. Fazzari.
Thank you. Put together just a few PowerPoint slides just to give an update of some of the things we've been working on and things that we continue to work on over the past quarter and next quarter. So first slide, please. Go. So the reservoir number 4 project, the first one we'll talk about. So as you recall, this is a 1 million gallon elevated water tank and 16-inch transmission main that will run along Majania Road and also connect to the new well number 8. The 90% design is now complete, and the Department of Health has approved the plan set. So we're ready to move to construction on that. Now what we're doing is circling back and doing some of the permitting that might be necessary for some additional funding that was received through the Corps of Engineers. They just have a few permitting hurdles to jump through so that we can access that money. And then also we're looking to combine it with the Majania Road project itself, since a lot of the work is happening simultaneously. So we're ready and waiting for the right-of-way process to move forward on the Majania Road project so that we can tie those two projects and get into construction. The right-of-way process takes some time, and so it'll probably be sometime next year, maybe late next year, that we'll actually get to advertise these projects. But the good news is the reservoir and transmission main design is complete and has been approved by the Department of Health. So we're ready to go. Next slide, please. So the wastewater treatment plant phase 1A, just to remind you, this is just doing some preliminary upgrades at the treatment plant at the headworks. fixing some leaking air piping, enhancing the equalization basin, and some electrical upgrades at the plant. So that is under construction right now. The contractor's done some preliminary work on the site, but a lot of the equipment, there's long lead times for. So we're waiting for materials to arrive before they can really begin in earnest at the wastewater treatment plant. That's something that we think will wrap up sometime next year with construction. And then phase 1B, so this was the rest of the wastewater treatment plant upgrades that we have designed, but we've been on hold as we've been evaluating some different options. That we've decided that we do want to go ahead and move forward with that project as designed. As you recall, we were exploring some alternatives to send effluent to Walla Walla and decided that wasn't something we wanted to pursue any further. And then we also looked at some options to send it to a nearby irrigation district, ran into some water rights and permitting hurdles with that. So we've decided to just go ahead and move forward with the project as planned. So that'll essentially be some new UV disinfection upgrades, a large effluent storage pond, a 50 million gallon pond. So that'll be a large pond out there. New pump stations, redoing the entire irrigation system on the 110 acres they have out there, and also an expansion of the irrigation system to the new DNR land that was purchased. So we're dusting off those plans and we'll get those ready to go to bid here next year sometime too. Next slide. So lift station number 5, this one's under construction. This was the work along Southwest First Street and relocating that lift station. So it's about 75% complete with construction. There were a few delays to the project. We will be able to pave a good portion of it here this year before winter time, so that's good news. There will be a small portion that will need to remain unpaved through the winter. But as we're waiting for the backup generator at the lift station to show up, they'll be working on getting the lift station operational over the winter. And then next spring, we'll be able to do the final underground utility connections and paving and finish the project next spring. The cured in place piping project. So this was the kind of citywide lining of sewer pipes. And so that project is underway. The contractor got a bit of a late start on it, but they're going to hit the target date. So they should be finishing construction here in the next week or two. There was a good stretch of pipe that once the contractor went in and cameraed all the pipes, they realized some of them are already PVC. So we're able to remove some of that from the project because we don't need to line the PVC pipes. There was a little bit of extra work in the project. They recognized there were a few areas with concrete pipe where there was some grout that was seeping into the pipe. It looks like maybe at some point somebody tried a grout repair from outside the pipe to try and seal up some of the joints, and it caused some extra cleaning and work inside the pipe that we had to deal with. But overall, the project's going to end up coming up under budget for the cured in place piping. And we're interested to see the impact that's going to have on the flows at the treatment plant, because the goal was to try and seal up the system that might have been having groundwater leak into it. So we hope to see some decreased flows at the treatment plant as a result of this project. Slide. So some Transportation Improvement Board grants that we had applied for at Whitman and Fort Walla Walla and Home Depot, looking at doing some design work for a roundabout for some potential development in there. Also submitted a grant for a roundabout at 12th and Larch. Also to reconstruct Southeast Larch, 12th to Whitman, potentially doing a grind and overlay there. So we're waiting to hear about those TIB grants to see if any of them are successful. Next slide. So the safety action plan, Spencer's actually going to present on this here later today, so I won't belabor this too much. He'll cover this one for you here in a little bit. Next slide. And then the Martin Airfield study is something that we've been working on. As you recall, you got a $100,000 grant from CURB to look at this property. And so we've done the economic feasibility analysis, and we're currently doing the infrastructure analysis for this Martin Airfield site. And so we're scheduled to wrap that study up here by the end of the year. And then Southeast 12th Street. So Robert and Mike and I attended a funding conference here a couple of weeks ago in Wenatchee, and we had the opportunity to sit down with some of the infrastructure funding folks in the state to talk about how to fund this particular project. And it would be 12th Street between College Avenue and Myra Road. Looking at a lot of different infrastructure. So adding in sanitary sewer, adding in stormwater infrastructure, and then also some water transmission mains. Since your intertie connection with the city of Walla Walla there at Myra Road is there, we felt it would be good to put a large diameter transmission main in that road so that in the case you need to use that, you have the hydraulic capacity to provide water for the city through there. So kind of a redundancy and resiliency for your water system there. So we met with funding agencies and they gave us some ideas of how we could potentially phase the project and strategize for how we might fund this project in the future. So now we're preparing some applications for the design phase of the project, thinking the design would probably occur over 25 and 26, and then likely construction sometime around 27. So we'll be working on getting some funding so that we could make this project a reality. Next slide. So this is a table of just the preliminary costs we came up with. It's a very expensive project, about an $18 million project. So looking to try and get as much grant funding as we can to cover that project. Next slide, please. Yeah, and here's just a summary of what we just covered. It's likely we'll break it into a couple different phases. That's what the funding folks that we met with suggested that we do. To position ourselves best for the funding packages that they can offer. So likely first phase would include doing some of the underground utilities and probably the roundabout. And then another phase, the second phase would potentially be a grind and overlay of the roadway. But it's still in its infancy and we're still working it out. Again, we're seeking funding for the design phase right now. Next slide, I think that might be it. Yep. So that's an update of the things we've been working on and the things that we'll be continuing to work on next quarter.
Thank you for this report. Let's see if we have any questions for Mr. Fazzari. Let's start with Commissioner Williams. Any questions?
I don't have any questions. That was an excellent report. Thank you.
Commissioner Tessman.
No question. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't have questions either.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
online Commissioner Larson.
Oh, she's joined us already. Very good. Commissioner Larson.
No questions at this time.
Thank you. Okay, thanks so much. Next, in our presentations, we have a comprehensive safety action plan update. Spencer Montgomery.
And you are welcome to share your screen, Spencer.
Oh, okay. Is that easier? Do you have those slides up? I think I do. I hope.
Yeah, we can do either way. I have them up, or if you want to control them, you can share your screen.
I do have them. That might be a little bit easier. Let me bring it over here. All right. Boy, I'm used to Teams though. Here it is. Tell me when you can see my screen.
Yep, we've got it.
Okay. So my name is Spencer Montgomery. I'm with JUB Engineers. I work with Alex here in Kennewick. You'll remember I came over there and visited with you in August as we were just kicking off the safety action plan, and kind of told you a little bit about what we're doing, gathering accident data, public involvement. This is a federal grant and it requires some extensive public involvement. I think the people that use the transportation network should have some say and help us identify where the hot spots are with respect to accidents. They use the roads, and so we had an event at the farmers market in September, and there's a comment period open. I'll touch on that a little bit more. We've been evaluating the collision data for over the last 5 years, looking at the number of collisions on roadway segments and intersections. A lot of the collisions happen at intersections. We're looking at the collision types with respect to two different aspects: the severity of injuries, fatalities, whether they're property damage only, but also looking at the types of accidents they are with respect to what caused the accident, whether it was somebody entering a roadway from a side street, or if did it involve a pedestrian, those kinds of things. For another project, we've collected some traffic volumes, and so we're calculating accident rates on all of the functionally classified roads, which will account for the vast majority of trips in College Place, as it does typically in most communities. So we're calculating those so that we can have a feel for the number of accidents related to the amount of traffic that there is on each road. We are looking at safety countermeasures. What kinds of projects can we propose with respect to addressing the safety issues that we're finding that are proven countermeasures? That, you know, there's national guidelines that help us to identify things that could be done given certain accident types. And then part of the grant requires us to prioritize these projects that we come up with. And we're not just going to prioritize the safety projects that we're identifying through this process, but all of the other projects that the city already has in mind that with respect to capacity, or your what we call the ADA plan, the American with Disabilities. Where do you need sidewalks to help serve the community that wants to be traveling using that mode? The grant source is called the Safe Streets and Roads for All, meaning they want us to look at all different modes of travel. How are people connecting to transit stops, things like that. So there, for example, there's another project that we're helping the city with, evaluating a mid-block crossing down on 12th Avenue west of Larch. And so that will be included, whatever we come up with recommending there for a mid-block crossing, those kinds of things. We're also required to look at equity considerations with respect to poverty and race, car ownership, those with disabilities, elderly and vulnerable users.
Hey, Spencer, could we get you to zoom in on that just a little bit more for us?
Oh. Let me see here. Up better?
Yeah, thank you.
Let me. Make sure that I've got. So this is, let me go a little bit smaller. How's that? Uh-oh. It likes to do that to me. Okay. So from the farmers market event, we had several dozen people that came by the booth and learned a little bit about the project and the study that we're working on. And we gave them flyers so that they could go on and make comments online. And I'll share some of the results of those comments so far. The comment period is open until middle of December, and it's been pretty successful so far. We've got over 385 comments as of about a week ago. And there are 8 different categories of comments that people can do, and they can drop a location on a map, and then they can tell us what kind of comment they want to make. Is it related to pedestrians, or reducing collisions, just general safety or speed, public safety, the ADA mobility for sidewalks and things like that, bicycle infrastructure as well. So those are interesting. Ranked by streets, Larch Avenue has the most comments so far. College Avenue is next. 12th Avenue, Myra Road, Whitman Drive, Southeast 4th, Bajanier, Lamperti, East Whitman Drive, and Meadowbrook, C Street, and then Homestead. So then we've got a couple of maps here. So this is just a screenshot of where all the comments have been dropped throughout the community. I think it's great that we're getting a really good mix of the types of comments for the different types of comments that they might want to make, and that they're distributed well throughout the city. So we feel like we're getting some really good comments. And as you interface with your friends and neighbors and others, tell them to go online and take a look and make comments with respect to safety. We can look at the accident data. The accident data will tell us the historical locations for accidents, but it doesn't really account for what I'll call close calls. City staff may get calls from the public members of the community that say, man, this is a bad spot, I can't see because there's a bush or there's something else that's in the way, and it's going to cause a problem. And so when we get those kinds of comments, that can help us to identify specific issues. And some of them are easy to fix and some of them maybe not so much. But it's great to get the public to give us their comments because they're driving on these streets every day. Then our GIS folks made some pretty cool maps. So this is just a heat map that shows the density of the comments that we're getting. So a lot of comments in this area here with respect to just general comments overall, more down in this part of the community. Another map is the pedestrian safety comments. And so you can see where there's a lot more comments with respect to pedestrian safety. And then I think I have one more here. This is reducing collisions. And so these are just those people that dropped a pin in these areas with respect to reducing collisions. So kind of the next steps for us is we're gonna keep doing our work, looking at the accident data, sifting through the comments, trying to come up with some projects and then prioritizing them. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to get back together with you again before your next regularly scheduled meeting in February. If we could get back together with you in January, that would sure help us facilitate our public process and meet some of the grant requirements of finishing in time, but more so to finish in time so that we can be eligible to submit one of our projects for some federal implementation funds next summer. What we'd like to do with you at that meeting is go into more detail about the comments that we've received, review the collision information that we've been able to go through, the projects that we've identified, go through the prioritization process, and then there's already been a Target Zero statement that's been adopted, but we want to review that with you as well, and then prepare for receiving some public feedback on this whole process. So that was the last slide that I had. I was asked to kind of keep it short, give you an update, just let you know that we've been doing some work. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have and get some feedback on when we might be able to have a workshop with you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Let's see if we have questions. Commissioner Larson.
No questions at this time. Thank you for the presentation.
Commissioner Williams.
On the, I guess I'll think of a different way to say my question. Are all the comments associated with a point? Because I can understand that, people might have comments that weren't necessarily geographic. So did they have to drop a pin even if, they wanted to say we should have a slower speed limit everywhere or something?
I think they do have to drop a pin, but we're going through all of these general or other kinds of questions.
Okay.
And there was a general comment category. And so those will be summarized in the work that we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Just as a point of interest for everybody, because I found this shocking, I'm in Arizona, in Phoenix right now, visiting my daughter. And for the first time in my life, I saw a school zone speed limit 35 when flashing. I was like, that hardly seems helpful. Anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Tessman.
No questions. Thank you for the presentation.
I don't think we want that safety evaluation team here in College Place, whoever's doing that in Phoenix.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay, that completes our safety action plan update. Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. We now have a presentation on Public Works from our director, Mr. McAndrews.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, my presentation is nowhere near as glamorous as Mr. Fazzari's. I apologize for that, but I'll touch on some of the projects we're working on that don't necessarily involve JUB. First two I'll touch on aren't necessarily utilities or transportation. They're two park projects, but I figured it was worth noting. And that's the Lions Park. As we're all probably aware, that project is well underway. It's going pretty well. You know, for a while there was a lot of underground work and efforts that weren't as noticeable to the public, but I think things are getting three-dimensional now, and hopefully folks are seeing the progress. Like any project, there's been a few, you know, minor hiccups, but I think we're still definitely on track to wrap it up this spring and be open for next year. So we're all excited about that one. The other park project actually does involve JUB a little bit. It's just in the kind of its early stages of design, but that's the Veterans Park project, where the plan out there at Homestead in that park is to add pickleball courts, basketball courts, restrooms, and a new playground. So total revamp of that park that's kind of underdeveloped at this point. So I think that'll be great. But moving on to more utilities and transportation stuff, Majonier Road, we've talked about several times. Moving along, we were in a right-of-way acquisition phase, working with our consultants to move that forward. We have, I believe at this point, 4 offers out. So there's still some more to get ready to go out, but I think we're hopeful that the rest of the offers will be out this month or early next month. And then it's kind of, you know, discussions with property owners and figuring that stuff out. With any luck, we'll wrap up the right-of-way acquisition, you know, in the springtime and be ready to be moving forward with construction next fall, most likely. So, again, you never know how the right-of-way stuff goes. There could be delays, but cross your fingers. Well 8, over there in the Majonier Road area down off of Teal. That's the new well that we are drilling. The driller has ran into a hiccup and they got what's called a baler stuck in there trying to get some of their equipment out, and they've been working diligently for the last few weeks trying to get this piece of equipment out of the casing and having some hardships with that. So we have full faith they'll get it, but it's adding some time to that. Regardless, you know, the next steps on that are to finalize our construction plans for the well house. And I mean, they're essentially there. We just need to do some well testing and get some information so our consultants can iron out the details of pumps and things. But hopeful to go to add into construction similar timing as Majonier Road. So sometime next year. Then there's Damson Rose Street. It's the Damson project. If you're familiar with that, there was a little piece of Damson Road near Rose Street that hadn't been widened or completed yet. It is essentially done. A few punch list items still out there. Part of that project was also our 3-laning of Rose Street for the city's section. I think it's about 700 feet of Rose Street. That was ours as we aligned that with Walla Walla's project for their road diet. We are waiting, the contractor's still waiting on the rectangular rapid flashing beacon for that crosswalk that's there at Wallula, Lambert, and Rose Street. So hopefully here in the next few weeks, next month or so, that'll come in and we'll get that installed and wrap that project up. I don't know if Alex touched on the post office crosswalk is another one JEB's been working on for us. Did you touch on that? You didn't. Okay. Similar, it's essentially complete with the exception of waiting on the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. They were longer lead items than anybody expected or anticipated. And we've been given a couple dates that have then been pushed a few times. And so hopefully those will again come in the next month or so, and we'll get that project wrapped up, get those flashing crosswalk signs in, which will be great. That's a huge improvement there on College Avenue. A similar out on Rose Street, another project we had been planning to do that has since kind of been put on hold. We're looking for more funding, was pedestrian streetlights along Rose Street from essentially city limits to College Avenue. We ran into some additional costs, more than what we had originally planned for. And so talking with the funding agency, we decided to turn down the existing grant and go back out to reapply for more money, kind of at their suggestion. So with any luck, that'll get funded in the next year or so. We'll be moving forward with that project. We were recently found out we got some funding for design on our well 3. That's the well down off of Larch near Lamperti, kind of by Hop Thief. It's one of our highest producing wells and most used wells, and it's also kind of aging. We've had some maintenance stuff come up, and we don't have an emergency generator down there. And with our other new wells, our plan is to design some retrofits to that and upgrades to align it with well 4, well 6, and our new well 8. So it'll all be very similar components, add an emergency generator. And then, if all of those are set up the same, we could have some of the critical components on the shelf as kind of emergency if something fails that would work at any one of those 4 wells. So that's kind of our goal there. Got some funding for design, so that'll be kicking off here soon. We have a water tower seismic retrofit for the existing water tower. It's an old water tower. We're not entirely sure of its seismic stability, so we've got a consultant working on some seismic upgrades. That project, and it's going to take some time, but it will involve, retrofitting that to ensure that it's seismically safe, it isn't going to collapse or have an issue, and also repainting of it, which I suspect will involve some abatement and a whole big process. I had visions of it wrapped in plastic or tarps or like the Blue Bridge in Kennewick or something while they're working on that. So it's in design right now. The consultant's working away at it. The reality is, until our new water tower is constructed, we probably can't bring that one offline and do the full construction of it anyway. So it'll be a little ways out before we actually get there, but we're moving that direction. Another one we're working on, getting a request for qualifications ready to go out so we can find a consultant to the work, is the Whitman multi-use path project. We have some funding to fill the gap between essentially Academy Way and what is it, Davis? Davis. There's a section there where there's no path currently, and there's a section where it's just kind of a normal 5-foot sidewalk. And our goal and through this funding is to add multi-use path all the way through there and connect the 2 multi-use paths on either sides for connectivity. That'll be a great project to finally make it passable for pedestrians and bicyclists without getting out on the roadway. So our capital projects manager and myself are working on the request for qualifications, hopefully to put that out for consultants within the next month or so, and to be able to hire somebody early next year to start working on design for that. I think that's all I have to report for today. Does anybody have any questions?
Let's start with Commissioner Larson. Questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams.
No questions. Thanks for that report.
Commissioner Tessman.
No questions. Thank you.
I will add my thanks. Mr. McAndrews, well done. Now we move to action agenda, and we have one of those, number 4.01, fiscal year 2025 to 2030 capital facility plan. Our city manager, Mr. Rizzatello.
Okay, thank you. So, this item, every year in November goes before this body for recommendation of city council. In the last couple weeks, Park Board gave their recommendation, as did the Economic Development Commission. So there's two documents here, the Cliffs Notes version that just has the name of the project, the costs, and then how it funded is the summary document. And then it's color coded to provide prioritization as far as whether it's budgeted or planned and what the priority is. The data for a lot of the projects is in the booklet form. And that is the long form page. So I'm only going to go over the projects that apply to this upcoming fiscal year, since the other projects really depend upon the level of funding or not. So if you go to page 4, in this document that has what is the capital facility plan. A lot of that is dictated by the regulations in the Growth Management Act. And then it also goes into what streets are federally classified, because a lot of the grant buckets are tied to that. So like College Avenue, 4th, C Street, Whitman, ones like that are federally classified, but little ones like 2nd Street, 3rd Street aren't. So that limits the funding sources to go after for that. Page 5 goes into the priority projects for next year. So naturally, the first phase of the treatment plant, the drinking water well, finishing that up at the Southwest Teal. Majania Road reconstruction, and there's a wide array of grants, and then the tax increment financing to pay for that. The wrap up of Lift Station 5 over on Southwest 1st Street, and that includes the section of Southwest 1st reconstruction, and then filling in the sidewalk gaps on Southeast 8th between College and Larch. Engineering is going on with that right now, and then construction trying to tee that up for the next year. Then if you go to page 7, that has language just tying everything in here to our adopted strategic plan. And right now, strategic plan is undergoing an update by City Council, but that is the one that's in effect right now. Page 10 has an annotation as far as to the process by which this document goes through the public review, and then ultimately teeing it up for approval in late November. Page 11 has the projects completed this year in fiscal year 2024, and there were a wide array of them. The Damson Street reconstruction, we're counting on Lions Park wrapping up, and then the sewer lining project class stuff going on. Page 12 goes into the summaries of essentially the projects and the generalized split. So as you can see in fiscal year 2025, a large percentage, about 36% is water. That's followed by streets at 27, and then wastewater at 15, and then the storm at 14, and then it gets reduced at that juncture. Going on to the 6-year outlook, the lion's share of the investment needed is streets at 37%, and then that's followed up by water at 19%, wastewater at 13%, and then parks at 11%, and then it goes down from there. Page 13 has essentially the split of costs for the various functions for next year. Page 14 has the same for the 6-year outlook. And then page 15 essentially has how we're proposing a payout for all of it. If you look for all projects, whether it's high, medium, and low, the total need is about 182 million. Really, 64% of that cost is estimated to be borne upon grants and then developer contributions. About 36% of that is local funding in and of itself. Page 16 explains how the prioritization works. High means it needs to really happen no matter what, and that the infrastructure is in poor condition. Medium means it needs to happen at some point, but isn't an immediate concern. And then low is really if there's grants or money of that nature available, will happen, but otherwise it's more of a wait and see approach. Page 17 goes into a map of where all of these projects are at. Now we're getting into projects themselves. First functions are facilities. So as we go into page 19, first is City Hall, and that's really realizing the vision of when this building was originally planned for, because they pared it back way back in the day because they did a council manic bond and it fit within the amount available. They built what they could, but original plans had it going out to like College Avenue for additional space. So really it's realizing that vision. And we're trying to get some congressional directed spending dollars, energy efficiency, and then FEMA money to make that a reality. Page 20 is the fire department. And with the fire department, since the Climate Commitment Act is still in effect, so we end up getting an earmark last legislative session to do a pretty dramatic upgrade with lighting and then any of the HVAC stuff. So that'll be paid for by that earmark, and they'll cover all of that. And then any remaining items like dorm room, furniture, things like that. Essentially, that's just paid for out of the reserve. And money for fire department. Page 21, police department. It at least as of right now, that ballot measure is still not passing. Since the last count was done, one thing is that it did pass the amount of voter turnout above 40%. Now it's 45%. However, for voter prebenz, there needs to be a super majority, so 60%. It's trending in the right direction. I'm not sure we'll get there though. Last count it went up from 48 yes to 49.5 yes, but there's still countywide about 4,800 votes left to count. So technically it's possible, but if you map the trend line, it doesn't look too promising, but it is possible. So I mean, moving forward, if this doesn't pass, really it's going to be in a little bit of waiting game, trying to get congressional directed spending appropriations and then stack them over a number of years and hopefully buy down the cost of the bond and then try again, really to hit the voter turnout threshold. And then especially with the super majority, the only time you really have a chance of getting these through are like presidential election years. So that's the general pathways of now going forward on that one. Now getting out of facilities as we get into parks. So page 24, Veterans Park over in the Homestead area, we did get a recreation conservation office grant, and we're in consideration for another one, and then we've put in for some additional private grants, but the vision there is to make that more of an active park. So putting a basketball court, pickleball court, commercially rated playground equipment with a military theme, move where all of that is at in said park, and then put down appropriate turf where it's more like a multi-use field for soccer. So we're getting there with the engineering, but we're trying to move to a construction phase in the next year. Page 25, Lions Park Community Center. That one, we're similar to some other projects where really it's trying to get earmarks together. So the idea here is that with Lions Park being renovated, really is trying to make sure the building matches the park, because right now it wouldn't. But make it more of a multi-use facility with childcare, library branch, and then commercial kitchen. And then community rooms. So we do have a Department of Commerce grant for about $2.5 million, and then a variety of earmarks. And then to make sure we didn't have to go through a lot of arduous regulations on federal and state level, we were able to get the County .09 grant program and pay for the architectural plans. So the goal is to start on the architectural plans shortly. And we're negotiating a contract now on that. And then you can see the other park projects, but they're in subsequent years, so nothing of criticality on that. Page 31 has a map of the federally classified roads. So those are ones that qualify for a lot of the Transportation Improvement Board and State Department of Transportation grants. Any of them, they're yellow, purple, red, green, ones of that nature. Page 32 is full corridor projects. So that's ones where we're redoing the roadway, but then also the infrastructure underneath. Page 33 dovetails an image on your road. Right now we are in the right-of-way acquisition phase, and really until we get that buttoned up, they'll hold up the construction. But we have tax increment financing dollars, and a lot of that is matched by congressional directed spending from Kathy McMorris Rogers at $2.5 million, money from the MPO, and then also Transportation Improvement Board grant. So we are moving on the critical pathway, make that a reality. Page 34, the east-west road. That one, essentially, what we're into that for, and that's a TIF project, is engineering it, and then essentially give some funds to the developer representing across the property to the east of them. But that road will link to the eventual new intermediate school and other public activities. So that's a pretty critical pathway right there. Then there's other corridor projects, but they're in future years. Now getting into storm projects, page 40, we have the Decant facility. So that's right now that's being paid for, where we have it proposed. We made an earmark request, Wall 2050. It is in their proposal to stay off of the Columbia River. And then we also put in for some ecology funds to match that. So we'll see where that goes. Page 41 is Birch Avenue. So we put in for Public Works Trust Fund, and that's to redo the road from 4th to 6th with sidewalks, and also 6th Street and some of the associated infrastructure underneath that. Then as we get into that, page 43 is Public Works Yard Storm. So we have funds from Ecology to cover engineering, and then moving forward on the appropriate improvements. Page 44 is Earl Lang. We were trying to get to that a couple of years ago, but cost escalations on Destito prevented us from doing so. So trying to plan for engineering and then get money together and make construction happen. Page 45 is our urban forestry. So we end up getting a large pass-through grant from U.S. Forest Service, a river network, and this will pay for running irrigation down Whitman Drive from Homestead to the city limits of Hampton Lane, and put trees along that multi-use path, and then it'll also pay for trees and such along Majanier and the east-west road. So we'll see that transpire there over the coming years. Page 46 is stream gauge installation. So putting that in both at the entry and exit of Stone and Garrison Creek and out of the city, because if we get that data, we'll likely be able to qualify for PL 566 money. It could pay for a lot of storm infrastructure, but where the study that the feds paid for was left at is that we need to quantify the benefit, and the only way to do that is with gauges and such. So that'll provide the tool to do so. Page 47, 10th Street. So this is a companion to the improvements we did a couple years ago on 10th east of College Avenue. So engineering that so it has appropriate curb and gutter and fix it up. So moving forward on that. Then page 48, just the outfall program. We have a lot of outfalls in town that don't have treatment, so we're trying to engineer them and then put in appropriate treatment over time. So those are storm projects of critical pathway. Now we get into streets. If we go to page 51, with that, we have the chip seal program, and there's streets listed there that gets additional useful life out of our roads, and REIT 1 pays for that. Page 52 is block resurfacing, and a couple of years ago we did that pavement inventory, and that's spelled out a way to systematically start to attack some of the roads where that would get additional useful life. So you'll see the transpiring of that in this page. Page 53 is Safe Walk. Historically, that was paid for by community development block grant dollars. Now we have a local road safety plan. A lot of this is paid for either by Pet and Bike or Safe Route to School money, or even the active transportation program of Transportation Improvement Board. Next year, you'll see finally putting in the sidewalk on 8th Street to connect downtown with Lions Park, and then to begin to prep the engineering of the gap of the multi-use path on Whitman between Davis and Academy. And that one is actually a MPO grant that's floating that. Page 54 is downtown parking lots. That's paid for with a TIF district. We end up acquiring our first piece of property across the street in the middle of the block, and we're working on some additional appraisals and then land acquisition, but making that a reality to facilitate reinvestment in our downtown corridor. Page 55, that is dealing with the intersection of the East-West Road and College Avenue, however much that looks like. So the engineering on that is ongoing. And then page 56, so engineering is going to be going shortly on that, but developing a solution to make Lamperti and College safer, because over years we've had cars and other things go over the wall at Lamperti, so getting that fixed up. And then page 57, this is really just the planning phase of it, but to open up development out west and get better access 125 to states insisting, and that being a roundabout, they have an eventual plan to change all intersections to that along 125, but we're trying to get that bumped up earlier so that way it'll facilitate investment in that part of town. Page 58, this project we ended up just getting state grant for, so putting pedestrian lights like what you see on 4th Street down Davis from Whitman to 6th, and then Whitman from Davis to Adams, and then putting in a sidewalk from 4th to 6th, and fixing up some pavement between 4th and 6th, but that's paid for by State Department of Transportation. Page 59, this is that Rose Street project, and we're aggressively trying to get outside additional outside funds to make that a reality. And then page 60 is that whole roundabout issue we need on Whitman Drive and make that hotel development move forward. And we're waiting to hear on the grant for that. We expect to hear about that by next month. If that doesn't go through, the other backup will be doing another TIF district, but the announcement will really detail where we go on that. And on page 61, we have a grant in for this, but converting 12th and Larch into a roundabout, and that's been discussed over a number of years. And then there's other road projects as you move on through the years. Now we'll go to wastewater, page 69. You'll see the wastewater treatment plant project, which Alex went over at length. So just making that a reality. A lot of that's being paid for by outside dollars from the feds and the state. Page 70 is our lift station project. So wrapping that up, and you can see that that's being done right now. So just making that a reality. And then there's another wastewater project in a couple of years, but that's the critical path ones. Now, getting into water projects, page 73, well number 8, that's on Southwest TLN land we own for the wastewater lift station. And with that, the hole is in the ground, so basically putting in the well house and the equipment and connecting it into the system. Page 74 is the transmission main on Majanier Road that'll link up that new well and then eventually the new water tower in with the rest of the system, and you'll see the breakout there. Page 75, that one is reservoir number 4, so the new reservoir of 1 million gallons, and that is being paid for by a litany of Department of Health grant and loan dollars, and then also we end up in the Army Corps WRDA bill to get grant funds that way, and then also congressional directed spending to make that a reality. And then page 76 is the current old water tower, getting that seismically updated and then moving forward on that. So engineering is in process, and then as we move past that, it'll be going in a construction phase. That's FEMA brick grant paying for that. And then page 77, that's well number 3. That was the well on Larch and Lamperty that carried us through our various water crises over the past years. But it doesn't have an actual permanent generator. So getting a generator engineered, and then also making sure the equipment on that is synonymous with our other newer wells, so everything is on similar systems. And then there's other projects past that point that go into future years. And then page 80 is the table of acronyms. And with that, is the summation of the capital facility plan. Questions?
Covered a lot of ground. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's put it to our commissioners. Questions regarding this capital facility plan. Commissioner Larson?
No questions, thank you. But I think he covered that much ground, so we couldn't remember to ask questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams?
I've learned a trick from city council, write them down as you go. So my question is a kind of a big picture. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my daughter's cat from hanging up on you guys. Since we haven't started on the architectural drawings yet, is it possible to combine at least a police substation with our new city or new Lions Park building? I hate to wait 4 more years before we can do anything about the police station.
I mean, hypothetically, you could. The only cautionary tale, which I mean, we would have to see how it plays out, is even on the early level drawings, all that other stuff I listed was already squeezed in pretty tight. So anything more would be pushing it. And then also, I will also say we would just have to check with the childcare people because the amount of regulations on that grant is ridiculous. So I'd have to see if that was if stuff like that was even allowed within the same structure. I mean, anything probably is possible, but it'll need more research. The thing to note with that community center in general is it isn't like we have free reign of the park. So we went during Lions Park project, we actually went through a really weird process to exempt 9,000 square feet of the park as the park because about 3 years ago, the National Park Service decided to spot inspect us from the original grant that paid to do the park back in 1969. And back then, that building that's out there now wasn't there. And we had to go through a 3-year process because they were threatening to try to make us tear down the current building because it wasn't in the original rendition. We were successful at getting it exempted, but I just want to mention that it's like a square in the park, and the square that we have exempted is like about 9,000 square feet.
So that's about how much room we have for our new structure.
Yeah, and that's why if you remember the proposal, we had it go in 2 stories because the only way you could fit all of that was going up because of that square.
Okay. So if we want to add a police station, it would basically have to be a skyscraper.
Pretty much at that point, yeah.
Yeah, I know there might be concerns with having a police station around a park, although other people might like it. So I also assume that we'll be looking at things like leasing a place or something.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I mean, yeah, those are all options too.
but that's not part of the capital facilities plan, so.
That is right now, no, it's literally where that police station is still in here and the ways of moving forward from available methods are in there, but that's the limit as of right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Tessman, questions?
Yes, on page 13 of and this just kind of following up with what Commissioner Williams had said. Before we take any action on the capital facility plan, there's on page 13 and then 14, the 100, the expense for the police station, would that change based on, I mean, right now, the ballot measure is failing.
Yeah.
But does that number on page 13 and page 14 change? Based on?
So page 13, that one I already took the police station out for next year, just seeing where it was going. However, page 14 does not, because if you look, I still put in a placeholder 4 years out, taking it into account, and then putting an inflationary factor in there. So in the 6-year time frame, that is representative of a police station. The 1 year is not.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion then that we recommend the fiscal year 2025 to 2030 capital facility plan as presented to the city council? Is there a motion that we recommend?
Commissioner Tessman moves that we recommend let me make sure I get this right, the fiscal year 2025 to 2030 capital facility plan for budget approval to the city council for budget approval as the commission decides.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second, Commissioner Williams.
Thank you. Any questions germane to that motion? Okay. Those in favor of the motion then say aye.
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 Any opposed? Doesn't sound like it. The motion is carried. We are recommending this plan to the city council with thanks to Mr. Rizzatello. Okay, I don't see any other business on our agenda. So is there a motion to conclude today's meeting?
Could I actually ask for one tiny thing before we do that? And that is, so we were asked if we could get together in January for an extra meeting. Could the clerk reach out to the commissioners and find out if that's a yes or no, and if so, when?
I can do that.
If it's okay with the chair, obviously.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
with that, I would move to conclude.
Okay, it is moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Robert Rule says that one is non-debatable. We stand adjourned.
Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah, so, yeah, what's up?